Okay, Shalom. All praise, glory, and honor be unto Yahweh Bahashim Yahweh Shai Bahashim Wadash. Peace and double honor to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Shalom unto the elect. So I wanted to go into a quick lesson, touching on something that I've actually been meditating on. I wanted to get into this for a little while now. Did some background research and you know got a good basis for going into this lesson now of information that I believe will be helpful to brothers, and Lord's will be edifying, because we're in times where there's a lot of stressful things that brothers got to deal with. All right. And, I was examining myself and seeing, like, you know, having a gut, having a belly and certain things. I was like, man, like, I felt like I wasn't really eating crazy for it to be like that. And then I come to find out that a lot of times brothers will have, it'll seem like belly fat, but it's based off excess cortisol in your body. All right. Which that's something that the Lord gave us. It's a particular hormone that your body produces. All right. And I believe it's your body makes it from cholesterol, basically. So when you have a lot of cortisol in your body, it can cause you to look bloated or blimped out. Meanwhile, you could be working out and doing things the right way, but it's that excess of stress and not having ways to cope with stress and deal with stress. Okay, which, hey, the scripture says, first and foremost, before I say anything, to give our burden to the Lord. Give our burdens to Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai. And we know that we're in trying times. The scripture says, that we're going through a fiery trial. All right. We're going through temptation, going through things that's trying our patience, trying our faith. Okay. So stress is just a part of life. All right. And stress, a certain level of stress is good for you because it makes you resilient. Okay. It makes you more resilient to things. And we want to be resilient, but we also want to manage our stress in our bodies because stress can kill if it's not managed properly. All right. You don't want to just be taking on too much and then not having something to mitigate the stress that you're dealing with. All right. That we all dealing with. So I got a list, I got it in my, if I can remember, I believe I'll be able to remember it. Probably, it's more than seven, but, we love that number seven, completion. So I figured I'd go into that based off of that. But before I did, I wanted to grab this. Since I'm at a light, I might as well get into it. This is 2 Corinthians 10 and 13. Or it's no, 1 Corinthians. 1 Corinthians 10 and 13, and it reads, there have no temptation taken you but such as is common to man, but the Most High is faithful, who will not suffer you to be tempted above that ye are able, but will with the temptation also make a way to escape, that ye may be able to bear it. So this lesson is really going to go into how to bear it, how to bear the temptation and the stress. Ultimately, we know we have faith and we trust in the Lord that he's not going to put us through something that's insurmountable. Everything that the Lord puts us through, there's difficulties and things and obstacles, but there's always a way to get through it. And that's really what this lesson is going to be getting into, is different ways to deal with the stress that we deal with, because too much cortisol in your body, which is that stress hormone, which is your body is building up because, going on a, survival, going when your body, like, let's say in the ancient times, if your body's undergoing stress, it's sensing that bad times might be coming or different times. So it will store fat as an energy reserve, right? So there's a purpose. Everything that the Lord made has a certain purpose. But again, the way that we deal with stress in this society, it's like a ridiculous amount of stress sometimes, especially as a man, especially being in this truth. Okay, different things that we deal with. So it's important to have healthy ways to deal. All right. And, number one, I'm going to say is prayer. Okay. When you read certain places, they'll say meditation and different things. But basically, the righteous version of all that is prayer. All right. That's the connection to Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai. And that's a way to reduce stress. okay? Because we're acknowledging the Most High, we're acknowledging Yahweh, we're acknowledging Yahweh Shai, we're communicating with our power, okay? And we are pouring forth, our it might be pouring forth a complaint. You're also expressing thankfulness, expressing the blessings of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, being grateful for what we have, also being bringing up things that we want the Lord to assist us with. So that's all a part of prayer, and supplication means to beg. All right. So that's all an acknowledgement of our higher power, which is Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, to get us through whatever things we're going through. Okay. Lord, put it on me to be more disciplined. Lord, I'm dealing with this current obstacle. Put it on me to have the patience to continue to deal with it. Lord, put it on me to not be so quick to anger. Lord, different things that we pray for that we're currently dealing with. That's all a way to mitigate the stress. Okay. Because again, if unchecked, stress can kill. All right. So, that's one thing. Another way to cope, this is number two. So the first thing was prayer. Number two is to build with the brothers. All right. When you look into people in the world, they'll say, you have your tribe or your people that you fuck with, social interaction and things like that. But what greater example of that do we have than the brotherhood? Because these are other like-minded men that we can relate to, you can vent and things like that. Communicate, see that there's brothers, that you're not alone in this thing. There's other brothers going through similar things. So that's why communication and being with and around the brotherhood, that's a way to reduce cortisol and stress. Okay. So that's an important thing, brotherhood. And I'm going to get a scripture pertaining to that too. All right. Psalms 133, and it reads, "Behold, how good and how pleasant it is for brethren to dwell together in unity." Right. So that's good and that's pleasant. And good things and pleasant things will reduce your stress. Right. So being with the brothers, that's why brothers will go, brothers will go a while maybe without seeing each other. We got brothers in New Jersey and we got brothers in New York. But when we're able to get together, brothers really look forward to those things because it helps to mitigate your stress. Brothers will laugh, crack some jokes, hang out, maybe get a bite to eat, whatever it is, kick it. And that is a good way to reduce that stress, man. All right. To get that, to keep them cortisol levels in check. Okay. Which when you look into it, the adrenal gland makes cortisol. All right. It's more to the process than just that, but that's basically the gist of it. All right. So you do need it. Me doing this, everybody and their mama's trying to call me to add to my cortisol levels and stress me out some more. But I'm not worried about that because the spirit is working right now. Everybody else gonna have to wait, man. Okay. But yeah, so that's a great way to deal with it. All right, to dwell with the brotherhood, to reach out to brothers, man. You're going through things, don't hesitate to reach out to brothers, because that's what is the brotherhood there for if not for that? All right, that we should bear one another's burden. So if one brother's suffering, we all going through it together. All right. And that's a good way to deal with it as well. All right. So that's two things. So the first was to pray to Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahshua. The second is to deal with be around the brotherhood. All right. Communicate with brothers and be around the brotherhood, because that's a place of peace and that's a place of goodness and righteousness. All right. The third thing, okay, is to exercise, man. All right. To constantly exercise. All right. Exercise is not just something you do when you say I'm done. It should be an everyday part of our lifestyle, aside from the Sabbath, of course, where, we rest. But bodily exercise profiteth little. But guess what? It doesn't say that it doesn't profit at all. It does profit. And bodily exercise, all right. And another thing I'm gonna say is all brothers should be in one way, shape, or form. I strongly suggest that brothers get into some kind of martial art. All right, boxing, kickboxing, jiu-jitsu, are the main three that that I see to be beneficial, and then it goes into like all different types of branches of those three. All right, but that's a good way to release stress, man. And I can say testimony for myself that I train, every week, multiple times a week, and that is one of the best ways. I don't even know where my stress levels would be if I didn't have that outlet. Okay, that outlet, and that reduces the stress and reduces those cortisol levels, man. All right, so training, hitting the gym. You don't got to go crazy lifting, 500 pounds and go wild, or whatever your limit is, and you can push yourself. Every brother knows his own situation better than anybody else. But you know, that is a great way to deal with stress, right? Alleviate the stress, okay, and to also build yourself up. All right, and the sensei that I train under, he said something that was pretty deep. That basically, people in the world, they will encourage each other to do a bunch of, basically waste man shit. Oh, let's go out and drink. Oh, let's go barbecue, and let's go, a bunch of what's the word I'm looking for? Epicurean type of shit. That is not productive. All right, there's no shortage of barbecues and people turning up and drinking, and you won't have a hard time finding people that are down to do that stuff. But when it comes to contributing to each other, oh, well, I found this book, that can contribute to this and that. Most people would not be on that type of timing. Or how about let's go for a hike, you know? And in the brotherhood, that's abounding. That's something that you'll have all types of brothers that have different things to contribute in terms of that. So that's why I was thinking it was a blessing. It's a blessing to have this brotherhood, because we're the opposite of how the world is. The world, they just want to turn up and party and do things that's appeasing to the flesh. But brothers are engaged in things that's involving discipline, working out. Let's go, let's go for a hike. Let's go out in nature. I just found this new information, this new article about this and that. I want to share it with brothers. Brothers will bring things to the body of Yahweh Shai, which is the elect, his brotherhood, in order to contribute to each other's walks, man, which is a beautiful thing. So, that is all a big aspect of being in this thing. All right. Is doing productive things, positive things. All right. Not wasting all of our time just, getting faded. You know what I'm saying? And ain't nothing wrong with it. I have a drink from time to time, but sometimes you got to just put the bottle down and tap into discipline. We in the times where there's a lot of assaults on us, man, of our health, of our mind, of our senses. So it's important to sometimes to just step away from those things. They're not going nowhere. All right. They're not going nowhere. All right. Women, having a drink, I'm not, Lord's will, I'm not coming off as over righteous, but I'm just saying that, in the times that we're in, it's great to lean into discipline and temperance more so than the Epicurean lifestyle. We should be leaning into the Stoic lifestyle more than anything. And hey, every brother knows his own walk, and, you got to have balance as well. So don't take it the wrong way. But, we should be encouraging each other to do things that's productive, that's going to benefit each other. All right. Hey, bro, let's go. You brothers trying to hit up the gym, or you brothers trying to work out, or, getting into study sessions with the deals with the scriptures. These are all productive things and outlets, and all of those things also will alleviate stress, man. And having a certain schedule and having a certain way of conducting yourself to where you in a rhythm, because if you're just aloof, I'm speaking to myself first and foremost. If we're just aloof and we don't have any type of regiment or guidance or system, then that leads to also confusion, stress, feeling lost, feeling like you don't have a particular way and having a purpose. We have a purpose. Our purpose is to serve Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, and everything that circles around serving Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai. Okay, everything that circles around serving Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai, all the different aspects of wisdom or of having discipline. All right, and those things benefit you, man. I never thought there's never been a time where I went to work out and I said, man, I wish I didn't. I wish I never did that. Never once has happened. All right, never been a time where I went to go train and did some kickboxing or jujitsu or boxing, and I said, man, yeah, that was a waste of time. No, it never had. Never been a time where I do a lesson and I think, oh, that was a waste of time, or something productive, And these are things that contribute to our feeling of purpose, man. Because this is dark times that we in, dark times. So you have to have a certain regimen and things that we're doing to keep ourselves sane. You know what I'm saying? Sane. Okay. And the main thing is the spirit. That's why the first things I mentioned was prayer and the brotherhood. All right. That's number one and number two. All right. And then number three was working out. Okay. And training and things like that, because that reduces that stress hormone in the body. And it helps it keeps things flowing, man. Stretching. All right. Stretching is another great practice to get into, which I need to do more of that. All right. So, everything I'm saying applies to myself first and foremost. All right. So we have those first three. I'm gonna kind of run through the last four. All right. Would be, sometimes get off the phone. And I'm saying it to myself again, because I know sometimes I'm guilty of this. Because we looking for prophecies, we be on the internet a lot, but sometimes just put the phone down and go step out into nature, man. All right. Just breathe in that fresh forest air or wherever you at. All right. If you buy some water, go buy some water and just, think about the Lord, or just go for a walk or something, because that act alone, it's the simplest things, it's really not complicated, but life, sometimes this world is constantly trying to pull us down to a low vibration, but going out into nature, man, is one of the best ways to deal with stress, man. All right. Just being out in the forest or being out in a beautiful landscape and appreciating the Lord's creation, man. Because this is not what we were meant to live and do, is just work and pay bills. We do it, we handle our business, but you got to have balance. We all have to have balance, man. All right. And that's essentially what this lesson is getting at, is just to have that balance. All right. So I mentioned those four. Okay. Now the fifth one I'm gonna say is diet. Okay. Diet is an important aspect also of reducing cortisol. And one thing in particular, which I just been tapping into it recently, that really helps to reduce stress levels, is magnesium. All right. And for the most part, the rule of thumb is that if a food is fibrous, if it has a lot of fiber, a lot of times it will have magnesium. All right. Fiber in general also helps, because if you're all stopped up and you're not, expelling the waste from your body, then how are you going to, deal with stress? You know, a lot of times you be agitated, I'm gonna say it raw. It comes off how it comes off, but sometimes you're all constipated and fucked up and clogged up. You got to take a shit, you know. I'm not trying to be, brash or nothing, but that's just the facts, And you have all that toxins in your body, and there's not enough fiber in the diet. You're not eliminating enough of the stuff that you're taking in. You see, a lot of brothers advocate for intermittent fasting. That's another great thing. Fasting in general, that is another great thing. All right, and I'll name a few foods that's fibrous that you can. Chickpea, garbanzo beans, certain different types of beans has magnesium and also has dietary fiber. One that I always say is like whole grain spelt bread is good, rye bread is good. In terms of like eliminating, and keeping the system, keeping your digestive system flowing. Everything has to flow. Stagnant waters is where disease is bred. So if your body's stagnant, if you're not eliminating what you already took in, then that's going to be a breeding ground for disease. And the stress, how can your body eliminate and get rid of stuff if you're all stopped up? You haven't even got rid of what you already took in, and yet you're taking in more, right? So that's, it's all a part of us brainwashing ourselves in reverse out of the ways of Babylon the Great America, because in this place they teach you to be a glutton. They teach you 3 meals a day, you know, a lot of shit that you don't necessarily need, man. Okay. You know, the so-called doctors, they don't know a damn thing about diet. They don't learn about that in schools where they learn that. Okay. And then they want to be telling everybody about how to live, you know, but they don't know the first thing about it. All right. So magnesium, fiber, you know, having a well balanced diet, lean protein, things like that also helps to reduce stress, because a lot of times it's the stuff that we eat and it fucks with our minds, you know. And I recently had to tap into that, you know, getting high cholesterol and shit. You gotta, you know, we all gotta regulate, you know, because they're looking to kill us, man. Everything in this society is set up to destroy us and kill us, man. So if we're not keeping ourselves in check and holding ourselves accountable, who else is, man? You know, Esau not up there telling us about these things. You know, they're going out of their way to tell you to go get more juice in your body. Go get that jab juice, you know, to go get yourself more fucked up. All right. But they're not going to tell you to fast and to do these things. All right. So that was 5. So it was prayer, brotherhood. Okay. Prayer, brotherhood, working out. Number 4 was go and spend time in nature. Number 5 was I just went into a diet. All right. Number 6 would be I know not every brother will have access, but if you do, if you have a gym or if you have a gym membership and they have a sauna or a steam room, get up in the sauna and the steam room. That heat, it's like heat therapy basically, and what it does is it reduces your stress levels. It calms you down. All right. And something about that heat is like the heat kind of like feels like it's hugging you, and you know it just helps to deal with that. You know. Hey, and just to reference number 5, the whole diet thing. Even in the Apocrypha, it goes in a lot on diet. You know, moderate eating, sound sleep, and that's spiritual because that ties in with number 7 that I'm about to mention. All right, I'm gonna close this thing out. But number 5 was diet, and the scriptures pretty much covers 2 of those bases. That's how you know the scriptures is the origin of all this, man. The Wadi Alba Shem Yahweh Shai for the knowledge of wisdom and understanding in the scriptures, man, because it says sound sleep cometh of moderate eating. So that's 2 of those things that reduces stress. If you can get those 2 aspects of life down, controlling what we put in our stomach, okay, and getting sound sleep, which is directly tied together, then you just covered like a whole bunch of shit. You know, that's like 3/4 of what you need to deal with. Diet, you know, and sleep. Sound sleep cometh of moderate eating. Okay. So that's number 7. All right. Getting good rest, man. Because that's how your body is regulating all types of shit. You know, all types of things happens when we sleep. Hey, the Lord even said he pretty much has man's instructions instilled when he's sleeping. I'm paraphrasing it. All right. So, you know, that's just another aspect of it. Okay. Sound sleep cometh of moderate eating. Okay. So we want to be, uh, excuse me, moderate eating. Okay. So not overeating, not just eating because we're bored, not eating because we feel a type of way, which listen, man, it happens. All right. It happens. Sometimes you're going through some shit and that meal that you're about to eat is going is going to release endorphins in your body to release some stress too. So there's a balance to everything. All right, because that's see the scriptures is completely balanced because it says that, but it also says that that's one of the greatest joys of men, of him being able to enjoy the fruits of his labor and eat and drink and things like that. But it's all within a balance. That's why the kingdom is going to be everything, because you're going to have immortal bodies. You're not going to have to worry about, you know, these type of things, you know, your body breaking down and stuff like that. All right. But, you know, that is one of the joys of life, eating and drink. But then there's a time where you have to say, you know what, for this particular time, might be a month or two where you know, you see that you're kind of off the path, or you see your body, you got to fill it out, man. We got to know ourselves, man. You know, we got right, and that regulate all different types of things, man. All right, I'm gonna name some few that I've been taking recently that's been keeping me, you know, and my family as well on a good path. Is elderberry. You can get elderberry, the actual berries, and make a tea out of it and drink that every single day. Key lime juice, which also helps to eliminate waste from the body. All right. What's the other one I've been taking? Oh, red willow bark. I think it's also known as cascansa. That Gad was heavy into that. Red willow bark. It's a good one. All right. Cures a whole bunch of different types of things. It's a good source of iron. Okay. Red willow bark, elderberry, soursop leaves, and soursop fruit itself. Even though it might be hard to find, but the leaves, you can get the leaves on Amazon or online. You know, because Jake will spend a whole bunch of money to get ourselves fly, but we won't spend money on taking care of the inside of our body. You want to decorate the outside, but then the inside is all fucked up. You know, one of the biggest flexes that I seen was having herbs and different things. You know, everything. You know, some brothers, it might be harder, but pray to the Lord and also work hard so that you can, acquire. And when you do get a little bit of bread, spend it wisely and spend it on things that's going to contribute to your own well-being. All right. And herbs is definitely one of them. All right. Sound sleep. Okay. So these are all things, and I'm going to just list them again. All right. From the top, it was number one, prayer. Number two, brotherhood, being around the brothers, reduces stress. Number three was working out. Okay. Number three was working out, training, going to the gym, being in martial arts. Number four was spending time in nature. All right. Number five was, what was number five? I think I said, okay. I forgot number six, but number seven was moderate eating. All right. Or no, I'm not moderate eating, getting good enough sleep. Okay. And number six, yeah, I don't remember what I said, but you could play back the video. But basically that's just seven, off the top. I kind of have meditated on some of them, but these are the ones that had come to mind. And I know there's other ones too of how to deal with stress, but these are important things that we have in mind, man, because again, it's an all-out assault, and we in a war, a spiritual war, biological warfare, chemical warfare. They're trying to have us chemically dependent, psychologically dependent, and all these things. So we got to be mindful of the all-out assault that's upon us, and to have certain methods and discipline in place in order to avoid those things. All right, in order to avoid falling prey to those things. All right. And we have all the knowledge and wisdom and understanding and the brotherhood and a wealth of information amongst ourselves so that we can share this information and avoid these same pitfalls and snares that the world is falling into. All right. I might have mentioned fasting. Yeah, fasting is another good one. All right. And there's a bunch more, these are just a few. So I'm sure that there's other ones, you could do research on it. All right. The internet, we got all types of information available to us. So there's really no excuses. All right. And I'm saying that to myself first and foremost. So with that, all praise, glory, and honor be unto Yahweh, Ba Hashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba Hashem, Wadash, and a shalom to the next one.